To the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. But I'm always fascinated by former law enforcement and intelligence transitioning into new careers. So tell me, what got you into consulting?
So I spent a 22-year career in law enforcement, and a lot of that involved, working in investigations, information sharing, intelligence type fields. And when I retired in 2017, I was asked by a company who I'm with, APB Consulting Solutions, if I would be interested in helping them out on the civilian side, doing some very similar things that I did when I was on the government side as well. And so that's kind of where everything started from.
So when I was at PwC, I was in risk management in finance, but our sister's team was forensics. And there were lots of former law enforcement and intelligence officials there. But you went into workplace safety and violence prevention. Did you have like that choice of going to forensics versus workplace safety, or why did you go for that specific niche?
So APB, the core is workplace safety. And sometimes workplace safety is an umbrella with many things under it. And so they specifically asked me to come on board for that niche, that area that we could go in and we could help businesses of varying size, because at the time that was becoming a real struggle, particularly with active shooters happening and insider threats and things like that. That was a very specific niche that a lot of businesses, and it didn't matter the size of the business, were really looking for answers.
That does make a lot of sense. So you've already alluded a bit to it, but can you tell us exactly what problem you help solving and for who specifically?
So when we work with and we call them partners, they're not clients, because we try to extend a relationship to them. We build a relationship. We just don't come in, do a service or provide a product and then leave. We want to build a relationship. So our partners have varying needs. They may have a need of, and this has happened to us quite a few times, where they have contacted us that we had a particular incident that occurred that raised alarm throughout the executive level, throughout the employee level. And so they're reaching out to us to say, hey, can you provide us some options? Can you provide us some best practices that we can do, or can you show us things? And so that's usually where the relationship starts. And then we will go in and we will sit down with them, find out, as long as they're allowed to tell us, find out what the incident was. That way we can be very specific to what they need. And then we start examining our plan. We actually create a plan of what do we need to do first. Most of the time, that plan includes a facility threat assessment, which actually is a physical walkthrough of however many facilities they want us to evaluate. And we start determining, is there a risk associated with the structure of the building? And then from that point, we start working. Basically, if you look at it from working from the outside in, we start with the building, then we get into the processes that the company has for safety and security. And then usually where we end up is actually training the employees. What type of training do they have? So it's walking in the door, trying to understand what their need is, and then meeting the need.
So when you say they call us in because they had an incident, so that's interesting. There are multiple things I want to unfold here. Can you give us an example of that? What type of incident would you come in because it raised alarms throughout executives in a company, for instance?
So we had, and I won't reveal the names of the companies, but we had a partner that contacted us because they had a domestic issue on one of their properties that involved someone showing up with threatening to use a firearm. And that sparked attention because they realized they had never faced this before, and nor did they have a process to work through it. And worse on that was they did not have a way to train the employees on how to handle that situation. So they had the incident and they realized we have nothing to combat this. We have absolutely no means of combating it, no training. And so they contacted us, and that's where we began our relationship with them.
So we work with quite a few people in the cybersecurity space. And what I love about security is that this is vitamins, which is such a hard sell, right? It's like, oh yeah, sure, you should have a system to, prevent people from committing cyber attack against your company. But if you're talking to someone who never faced any cyber attack, they would be like, yeah, sure. Like, and that's going to be put at the very bottom of the priority list.
Mm-hmm.
Do you typically intervene when there has already been an incident, or do you also come in because people are just aware that they should have like better workplace safety?
Both. We and I would say it's about 50-50. Sometimes people contact us, like the example I gave you of where someone has caused something, or they say, look, we see what's going on in the world. We know we need to better our processes, our training, and so forth. And then that's where we come in to help. And that's why that initial meeting and sit down with them is so important to, because the whole objective of us being there is to meet their need. And we don't want to offer them something that maybe they're already doing well on. Maybe they're doing a great job, and we'll tell them that. But we want to isolate it to exactly what they need. And typically what happens is once we show them one need, they start seeing another and then another. And then that's why we set up a plan to kind of further them along.
Love that. Do you serve any specific industry or niche, or are you industry agnostic? Like, who do you typically help?
So we have been in, we're pretty heavy right now in the financial sector, banks, credit unions, those type of things. We have been in schools, health departments, other critical infrastructures. We have done some work with some government entities, water, wastewater, utilities, those. So it's a pretty wide spectrum of some of the places that we partner with.
Yeah, and it makes sense that you would have government institutions there because I guess you don't want anything happening in your critical infrastructures when you're, managing energy, water supply, whatever could put a lot of people at risk. So I don't know if you've heard, it was in Europe, so I'm in the US right now, but I know we don't always look at what is happening in Europe, but there has been a huge shutdown in Spain, like no electricity for 48 hours. I don't remember which area of Spain. Are you using those events to kind of brand, market, and like strengthen your messaging? Like, how do you typically advertise and market?
So what we try to do is we assess what's going on in real time. Some things unfortunately continue to happen, insider threats happen, active shooters happen. But one of the things that I tell our team is we have to stay on top of what's currently happening live, that people are watching. And because when people watch an incident, when they see it on the news, whatever form of information they're getting it from, they start to ask questions. They start to ask themselves, and I'll give you a great example of this. When the unfortunate event of the CEO in New York, when he was executed, that raised a lot of questions for executive level security. How do we manage that? When was the last time we even looked at this plan? And then some people realize we really don't have a good plan. So things like that, we try to stay on top of what is real world, what are people watching, and then at that point we say, here's how we can help you.
I like that. Who typically brings you in? Who sees the alarm, ringing, and they're like, okay, we need external help. Let's bring in someone like Scott. Like, who's the decision maker?
That's a unique question because we have had to deal with different levels of a company. I would say primarily it's a security director, quasi human resource individual. And one of the things that we found, I would say probably over the last 2 or 3 years, some of these companies, and again, it doesn't matter the size, they bring someone in to meet a need such as a security director who may not necessarily have a strong background in that field. And a lot of times and to their credit, they will say, I'm willing to take this on, but I'm not sure I have all the training that I need to meet the need of the company. And so a lot of times they will reach out to us and say, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with training? Can you help me with processes? Can you help me with developing an emergency action plan? We've noticed that change over the past 3 years of someone being promoted to a security director's position and just needing some help.
And so government institution, but when it comes to corporate, is there a typical size where you see this type of need not being fully serviced yet and people have gaps? Like who does this typically fit well with?
I would say in most cases, it's a medium to small business. Most of the corporate size, larger institutions, they have the resources that they can get the retired FBI agents, and come in and say, okay, we want you to be our security director. And that's great. I mean, that's a wonderful practice, but not everyone does that. And sometimes it's an internal progression. Someone who's either expressed interest in safety and security is promoted, and maybe they might have somewhat of a background, but there's other things that they're not very skilled on. They're not very skilled on how do we train employees? How do we scale training for employees? What are we supposed to train them on outside of the typical human resources, things that they do in businesses? So we help them with that. We help them say, here's your plan. Here's some of the things that we've noticed you might need a little help on. And then we don't walk away. We actually partner up with them and help them.
So tell us a bit more about how those people find you, Scott. Like back to the marketing and branding, what has worked for you when it comes to getting the attention of those people? And when there is an alarm ringing in their company, they find you specifically. What has worked for you and for APB?
So we have a website, apbconsultingsolutions.com, and we have people visit that website. Particularly, we notice an uptick. The young lady that runs our social media does a wonderful job, and she tracks when upticks, and she matches those to existing world events. The other way we have really noticed is when we get asked to speak as guest speakers, whether it's at a conference or an event of some sort, and that's where a partnership develops. And then word of mouth, of course, for instance, if we're in the financial institution and we're working with a particular partner, a lot of times, that network will talk and they will say, yeah, we used APB Consulting Solutions for A, B, and C. And so that gets us in the door with some other companies as well.
Tell us a bit more about how you guys do social media. The reason I'm asking this is consulting is all about authority, being considered as the subject matter expert, being trusted by the market, right? You don't bring in a consultant that's going to charge you high five, if not six figures, project engagements without trusting that they can deliver. And I think that's social media is something that lots of consultants haven't nailed fully yet. So without getting into the particulars, because I understand you have a person in charge of doing this, but what do you see working for you when it comes to communicating what you do on social media?
I would say what we try to do is we try to demonstrate what we can do. I guess it comes down to two things. One is our experience. That's a big deal. Our backgrounds, the majority of APB is retired law enforcement and military with very specific skill sets. It's not, yeah, we just did patrol all the time, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but in our fields, we did very specific things that can translate into the civilian world. And so we try to project that out. On top of that, we try to push out what we have done for people, as long as they will allow it. You know, some things we do for people, they don't want to project, they don't want it public, and I understand that. But other things we project that, look, if you're having this issue, we can help you, because, for instance, you know, schools may have battled the same problem. I mean, just because one school in Kentucky has an issue, I'll bet you schools in Ohio, California, Idaho, Florida, wherever you can name a school, are having the same issue. And so when we solve a problem for someone, we want to demonstrate that. We want to say, this is how we did it for them. Maybe we can help you.
Love that. Okay, that does make a lot of sense. How do you, especially in your niche, how do you take this? So you've made people aware, they found out about you on social media, you've demonstrated experience, they heard you or another partner at the firm speak at the conference, at an event. How do you bring this home? What does the sales motion looks like from, you know, initial conversation to SOW, letter of engagement, we rock and roll?
So we have a sales team. They are designed to obviously explain our product to potential customers. So when we get an inquiry that comes in, we will determine, okay, what region are they in? Are they in Kentucky, or, you know, are they in Florida? Are they wherever? And we will assign that to a sales rep, who will then set up meetings and provide an explanation. What is the concern? What is the need? Here's what we can do to help. And then that sales rep will refer it to one of our experts. Whether that is me, whether it's one of the other teammates that work for APB, and then we will assign that to someone. Then the team as a whole will sit down and analyze the problem. This is not a one-person show. This is not a someone that just says, hey, I'm going to do this. We run our ideas past our team, and we want to make sure we're not missing anything, that we don't leave any gaps. Hey, did we miss a need here? And we'll point that out to each other and make sure that when we walk in the door to that particular partner, we're providing them a plan that is going to work and that's acceptable, and really that's affordable as well.
What levels do you use? What I mean by that is, I had a guest yesterday talking about putting the emphasis on the fact that some people have an urgent problem that needs solving. And she mentioned, like, same day discount. Like, if you make your decision right now, I'll give you a hefty discount. Now, when it comes to workplace safety, right, security, what levels do you use to actually, and your sales team uses, to close the deal? Because I guess there's going to be a lot of, like, fear factor in it, pun intended. But, like, how do you make this happen without fear mongering, right? But at the same point, pressing on the fact that if you don't solve this, you increase the chances that at any point in time something really bad happens. It's like, how do you navigate this?
That's tough. I agree with you. We do not like to fear monger. We don't. The worst thing we want to do is make people afraid, because fear sometimes locks people down. And so what we'll explain is, you had an incident, yes, but here's how we can prevent this from happening again. And so what we'll do is, and how we try to help them understand, it's a progression. If they need us just for one particular thing, we will do it. We'll come in. We try to be the easy button. We try to say, what do you need us for? If you just need us for one thing, we're here to help. We'll meet that one need, and then call us if you need us for anything else. But typically what we find works is we serve over multiple years. So we may set up let's say a 3-year contract, and tell our partner, this was your initial need, but this is what we found by meeting that need. And there's 3 or 4 other things that we can still help you with, but we want to give you the choice. Do you want to stay with us and partner with us? And what we typically find is they say, yes, come in, let's let's build our safety and security stronger. Let's not just stop it at this one area. Does that answer your question?
No, it does, and actually, it answers the next one. So that's well played, Scott. And so that all makes a lot of sense. The next question was exactly around this. So when I was a consultant at PwC, so in financial risk management, the partner that taught me everything was like, Guillaume, there are two types of consultants. There are the hunters and there are the farmers. And he was like, I'm a hunter. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after new business. I was like, but the partners growing the fastest and bringing in the most money are the farmers, the ones who are able to take that initial engagement, over-deliver, and then transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year project involving other teams from the firms and so on and so forth. So my question to you, Scott, is the following. Especially in your niche, right? How do you take that initial engagement and transform it into bigger engagements, multi-layered, multi-aspect, multi-team, if at all, right? If that's something you want to do or can do, like how do you do that?
We follow pretty much one model. Number one, we want to examine, and I kind of mentioned this early in the interview. We want to examine your physical structure. The second is we want to examine your process, and third, which in our opinion is the most important, is training your employees. If I had to put my finger on probably the biggest failure that we see in the corporate world is the training. Online training is great. We do online training ourselves, but it's extremely limited. There are some things that you have to physically do. And it doesn't mean you do a full-blown fear factor, chasing people around with Nerf guns type thing. But we show them how to do what we term a walkthrough, and how to do that in a very effective and short time frame with their employees. So for instance, going back to the financial sector, if there is a branch, let's say a bank has 50 branches, what we want to do is we want to train that branch manager how to effectively and in a very short time frame get the point across to the employees on a specific topic, bank robberies, for instance. And we teach them how to do that through the use of online, through the use of roundtable discussion. So simulations at a roundtable, the what would you do type thing. And then third, a walkthrough, actually physically walking through. It's kind of like when a NFL team does a scrimmage. They're not hitting each other real hard. They're just kind of walking through the play. And that's what we do with them. And we teach them how to do that. That way they can be self-sufficient.
I like that a lot, and that does make sense. And I like how this is softly leading into the next engagement. First, focusing on value and highlighting the points of hey, this could be useful to you. Can we help? I like it. So obviously you're doing lots of things right, Scott. So I have a bit of a curveball question for you. Where would you say you feel stuck right now? The reason I'm asking this is we will have B2B coaches and consultants listening to us right now who might feel stuck at the same point in their consulting practice. I think it's always interesting to hear from your peers and how they think about solving a problem that they are facing as well. So for you, what would that be?
Probably where we get stuck the most is helping people understand, and I'm referring to partners that have not had an incident, helping people understand the importance of safety and security, because it is a hard sell. It is a hard sell. And many times, unfortunately, the line item that's instilled in someone's budget is usually way down here, and they're going to pay attention to safety and security here and not up here. And so we run into that, and we have a way of negotiating and working through that and helping them explain. Does it always work? No, it doesn't always work. I would say definitely that's our biggest sticking point, is helping people understand that this can happen to anyone. And I know people say that all the time, but it's true. It's so true. And very much like you have insurance and you never want to have to use it, this is something very similar. Is you want it to be set up properly, so when something does happen, You can mitigate things much faster, which is saving you time, which is saving you money, which is saving you, more importantly, employees, their physical state, their mental state, and things like that. And in trying to get out of that sticking area for some administrators, executives, is difficult because there is a cost to it. There sometimes is a cost. And again, like I mentioned, we try to keep that cost as minimal as possible. But typically when they find that, yeah, you're right, we do need to look at this. And we start at a low point and then build from there. Our goal is not to go in, throw a big number at you and say, hey, here's what we need to do. Let's start minimal. Let's build a relationship so you trust us, and then we'll work further down the road.
Okay, there is a lot of golden nuggets here that I want to further dig into. So first of all, there is Stefania commenting on the live right now, saying too many companies are not even wondering if they have to train their teams or not. It has to be known magically, somehow out of the blue, they discover their teams are not delivering as expected. But then there is the deeper layer when it's about safety and security. So how do you, in your communication, make those companies even realizing that they need to train their team on this, on top of all the other things that they probably need to train their team on? Like, how do you make that mindset shift for your target clients?
So we came up with, that was a question we had been asking ourselves for quite some time. And what we did was we came up with a model. It's called the M3 model, the modern micro learning model. And how this came about was a partner company that we have worked with for quite some time is very heavy in the retail space. And one of the pain points that they said retailers across the country were having was being able to train employees in a very quick amount of time in an effective means, and not spending a bunch of money doing it. And where this was coming about was, for instance, they might have cashiers that only stay with them for 90 days, 120 days, maybe a year. And they're constantly having to retrain them. And this is obviously in the safety and security realm. So what we did was we sat down and analyzed the problem, and we said, we think we can come up with a model that will help do this. And basically what we did, we explained the model to that person that has that question and said, we can give you and show you and train your supervisors how to effectively train someone, a group, at a branch, at a store, whatever it is, in a roughly about 45 minutes once a month. And we demonstrated this and tested it and evaluated it. And the main thing we wanted to evaluate was their ability to retain the information. And we did that through what I mentioned earlier. We offered a testing through like a quiz. We offered roundtable discussions and walkthroughs, and we evaluate them. And it was successful. It has been successful. And so that was a very big pain point that we battled with for quite some time. And we think we've come up with a pretty good solution for it.
Talk to me about, so it's very much a thought leadership exercise, right? But also an education exercise in your case. Like, your market, your industry, your ICPs need to be educated about what may happen if they don't take a certain action, which is much different than, hey, okay, when this happens in my industry, that's my response, right? It's being much more proactive. I'm saying this because I've recently rewatched the series Chernobyl, which is on the spectrum of like how big a catastrophe can be on the workplace. I guess this is at the very extreme of the spectrum, but like, this is what we're talking about, right? Like, it's not one thing that will trigger everything. It's a series of events, human processes, and in the case of Chernobyl, also state lies. But like, how do you, I'm asking this because I think it's really super important also for consultants. How do you educate what's on top of displaying on social media what you have done? How do you educate overall the audience of like, guys, this is what happens?
So this goes back to studying real world events. It's an unfortunate topic, but we dive into it. So for instance, when something happens,
right,
we will dive into the details of the event. We don't look on it at a surface level. We want to get down a little lower and find out what actually happened, because that's of value to us, but more importantly, it's of a value to our customer. They may hear of an incident and they may only get the surface level, the tip of the iceberg. It's our job to dig a little deeper and say, oh, by the way, because they did not have A, B, and C training, we believe this happened. People either lost their lives, they lost, there was a lot of property damage there, whatever the situation was. We try to solve the problem as to why did that occur? Why did this happen? Not whether your security measures were in place at the time of the event, but why did it happen? Why did you have something set up really well and something you ignored? And so that's what we try to do. We try to go deep into the roots of the problem when we start working with people, not just, and we give them incidents. We don't make the stuff up. We say, in this particular incident, these things happen, and this is why each one of those incidents happened the way they did.
What's the next big thing for you, Scott? Like 3 to 6 months, what's the next big level for growth for APB? Like, what do you see being the next big opportunity?
I would say the model that I explained to you, the M3 model, is starting to take off, because I had no idea how big of a pain point it was till we started diving into it, and particularly in the retail space. I feel my heart goes out to some of these companies who have to train and retrain and train, and they're not keeping some of these employees very long. But one of the things, and I can't remember where I read this, it was a great quote that the author put in this article, was that a lot of times employees just want to understand that the company is investing in them, and that has to do with protecting them. And that really struck with me, because I thought, this ties right into the M3 model that we're getting some good response from. We're getting great results from it. And that's what I think our next, over the next upcoming year, I think that's going to be one of our biggest projections out to our partners.
Otto Brian, ladies and gentlemen. Scott, if people want to find out more about you and what you do, where should they go?
apbconsultingsolutions.com.
I love that you're a straight shooter, and this is very straightforward. So we'll put the link in the description. As for LinkedIn, we'll also put the link, if that's all right. And yes, I can say that you've earned at least one connection from this interview. Me, I just added you. Scott, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show, so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.